Early cinema, also known as the novelty era. Throughout the late 19th century, several inventors such as Wordsworth, Donisthorpe, and Louis the Prince made pioneering contributions to the development of devices that could capture and display moving images. The art of minimalism. That, in essence, is the art of the silent movie. Without dialogue, early films had to rely purely on visual communication to convey their stories. Body language, facial expressions, and the occasional quick gags were the norm back then. Now, that in itself is quite a bit of a challenge, to say the least. Early filmmakers had to be incredibly inventive in order to satisfy an audience still unfamiliar with the concept of film. Those filmmakers were indeed the pioneers of a whole new art form, and they did it through the art of minimalism. In fact, they took so much pride in the art of minimalism that as technology became advanced enough for films to actually have sounds, or even, God forbid, dialogue, many were opposed to the idea at first. In the words of film critic
Philip K. Scheuer,
talk is still the lazy man's prop in the writing of motion pictures.
Indeed, in the beginning, studios were so against the use of dialogue, partly because of financial reasons, that they even tried to limit the number of words said in Hollywood films. 850 was floated by studio execs as the reasonable number. More than that was considered blasphemy and an unnecessary expense. Unfortunately for them, by the 1930s, this dialogue thing was beginning to catch on. Yup, the use of sound technology in Hollywood had slowly but surely become the norm. However, to think, like some people do, that the inclusion of sound was just a simple matter of adding a silly little voice to a moving picture would be foolish. It was a long and arduous process. As you might imagine, the early years of sound in movies were a period of experimentation and innovation with dialogue and sound effects. But we're focused on dialogue today, so that's what I'm talking about. Early screenplays often relied on the talents of writers from the worlds of literature and the stage, which didn't always quite work out. See, people were beginning to realize the shocking truth that film is actually a different art form. You cannot simply use lines from a Scott Fitzgerald novel and hope for success. This is why each genre began to develop its own lexicon of words and phrases that would serve the story best. For example, during the making of Vampires of Prague in 1935, a sort of lexicon of fear was developed in order for future writers to create a subconscious sense of fear in the audience. They favored words such as
ominous, crooked, phantom, asylum.
The comedy genre also experienced drastic changes as dialogue became an essential part of it. Puns and double entendres began, if not to replace, at least to complement the old format of visual gags and slapstick humor. All of this is to say that ever since its addition, screenwriters and creatives have always been trying to perfect the art of film dialogue. And it is an art. And just like any art, it can be done well or not so much. But dialogue and sound in film didn't just add to the atmosphere and tone of the story. They were just as revolutionary when it came to the actors and performance on screen. Take this, gentlemen.
Sir, this lady is my wife. You should be ashamed.
If this lady is your wife, you should be ashamed.
You'll hear from me.
Do that, even if it's only a postcard.
You may have seen him, you may have not. I'm told, however, that people in the 20th century were crazy about him. This is Groucho Marx, considered to be one of America's greatest comedians. Like Chaplin before him, he had one of the most recognizable faces in the world for his time. Unlike Chaplin, however, he had something else, something additional. He had a voice, and a voice which became just as recognizable as his face. With the use of sound, for the first time in history, an actor could be recognized as one whole, which included not only motion and sound, but inflection of voice, timbre, verbal tricks and speech patterns. In Groucho's case, his voice also evoked the types of characters he played, usually indefatigably charming conmen, charlatans and womanizers. This, my friends, in essence, was the birth of the modern movie star, and it happened because of sound. Like Groucho, some of cinema's most beloved movie stars, both old and new, possess instantly recognizable and sometimes quirky voices. This led filmmakers to the realization that just as the screenplay, sets, costumes, and lighting were designed to enhance the star's screen persona, the star's native personality also enhanced the diegesis of his or her films to some extent. This symbiosis between the actor and character they were trying to portray became essential, and still is essential to the art of filmmaking. So basically what I've been trying to explain with all this is dialogue is important, it has always been important, it adds so much to what's happening on screen. Silent movies bore me to death, I hate them with all my heart. Okay, this part's done now.
Objection! Hey guys, it's me again. Here to tell you that what you just saw is just a tiny part of a 50-minute video talking about movie dialogue. In fact, it's on your screen right now. So, if you're interested, you can give that a watch. Or not, I can't tell you what to do.